When we first meet Saul in today's first reading for today, he is screaming no to anyone who is following the way of Jesus. And he's actually saying yes to threats and violence as a way of getting rid of these people called Christians. And then he encounters Christ on the road to Damascus, and his script is flipped. He eventually dedicates his life to starting and maintaining faith communities centered around Jesus. He leaves violence behind and receives a new name, Paul. When God asks Ananias to go see Saul, he is afraid because he knows Saul to be a violent and punitive man. Yet he says yes to God and gets to be part of Paul's journey to baptism and beyond. Simon Peter and the other disciples say yes to returning to what was familiar, fishing. They go back to what is known and comfortable. And then Jesus comes up on shore and invites them into something new. In response to Jesus' question, Simon Peter says, "Yes, Lord, you know I love you." And these 3 times he says yes to counter the 3 times that he said no to knowing Jesus before Jesus was crucified. What we choose to say yes and no to can define our lives, as it did for Paul and the disciples. As the 9th graders were preparing for today, I asked them what they wanted to say yes and no to in their lives. And I'm going to share some of their responses. I can't share their entire papers because that would take way too long. So I just plucked out some things, and now they're all getting nervous. They're really good. Haley is saying no to drugs and alcohol. She writes, "I see kids in my grade and above me struggling with drug addiction. I want to pursue my dreams and graduate from high school and college. I don't want drugs or alcohol getting in the way of being able to accomplish my goals." Gilbert is saying no to bad influences to keep himself out of trouble. Ryan doesn't simply want to do what others want her to do. She writes, "I want to be able to enjoy high school because it comes only once and it's going to end fast. I want to plan my future and have a say in things. I want to be my own person and have the brightest future." Eleanor is saying no to group think. "I would like to be able to think for myself and have my own opinions about things. I believe that God gave me a brain to make my own decisions and take charge of my life." Bennett wants to say no to exclusion. He writes, "At school, there's multiple times throughout the day where I see kids walking the halls, doing work, or eating all by themselves. I'm sure if they were offered, these kids would gladly do all of these things with someone else, even if they barely knew them. I'll be trying my best to include these kids in things I do, and I'll encourage my friends to do the same." Molly is saying no to bullying. See, these are not in alphabetical order, so you have no idea when your name is going to be said. Molly says no to bullying. She writes, "I don't understand why people bully each other. They take away my joy and peace and love. Bullying needs to stop, especially the bullying that leads to people killing themselves." Brooklyn says, "I want to say no to harm to oneself and any other living being. Harm is a broad topic, So it could be things like bullying, physically or emotionally hurting someone, polluting the environment, or someone who harms themselves. Lily is saying no to racial inequality. She writes, "Racism has always been very evident in the world. It is the root problem for many world conflicts. Inequality of any kind brings negativity and takes away peace." And Liam eloquently wants to say no to racism because it is not life-giving, but feeding a fire that needs desperately to be splashed on by the waters of kindness and togetherness. Very poetic. The things that we say no to in our lives clear a way for us to say yes to other things. And so these are some of the things that the ninth graders want to say yes to. Molly says yes to making new friends. "I don't believe there is such a thing as having too many friends. Only if you are loyal to them. Nobody likes a fake friend. If I have to, I will stand up for any of my friends and never turn my back on them. I believe that having friends is an important part of life." Lily will say yes to kindness. Whether you hold the door for a stranger or volunteer at the food shelf, those acts of kindness will go a long way. Bennett notes, "I obviously can't do things like donating money. I'm 15 and don't have a job. But I can still do things like helping out in the community, especially with the less fortunate." Eleanor says she would like to be part of a team to help end world hunger, fight for social justice, and help accept immigrants. Gilbert is going to say yes, and I don't know if Lewis knows this. Gilbert is going to say yes to hang out more with his brother. He says, "I understand I will be graduating in a few years and won't be able to hang out with him very often." Haley says she wants to set the best example for her younger siblings. Brooklyn wants to say yes to strength. Although strength, she writes, although strength may seem like a stereotypical weightlifter or someone that is just very loud, strength comes in many forms. Some many are not aware of. Strength could mean walking away when all you want to do is scream. It could mean having the strength to speak up about something that isn't right. Liam says yes to faith. Faith is what brings together millions of people worldwide and builds nations from the ground up, strengthens communities, and prevents war and chaos. And Ryan says, "The last thing I want to say yes to is being confirmed. I cannot be more excited to be confirmed and actually be a part of the congregation as an adult." Those are just snippets. People of God, on your journey of faith, what do you want to say no and yes to? Following Jesus is not about a little prayer that we say here and there. It is not restricted to Sunday morning. It's about what we choose to say yes to and what we choose to say no to. Because what we say yes and no to shapes our lives. It determines how we spend our time and our money, who we hang out with, why we get up in the morning. Today we will witness 9 ninth graders saying yes to their baptism, to their identity as a beloved child of God. They will say yes to living among God's faithful people, hearing the word of God and sharing in the Lord's Supper, proclaiming the good news of God and Christ through word and deed, serving all people, following the example of Jesus, and striving for justice and peace in all the earth. And if you are a member of a Lutheran congregation, you have already said yes to those very things as well. They will say yes to staying connected to God and staying engaged in the conversations and the questions. May their words and actions today inspire us in our faith journey. Amen.